This is a quote by Seneca from On Tranquility of Mind. What is the point of having countless books and libraries, whose titles could hardly be read through in a lifetime? The learner is not taught, but burdened by the sheer volume, and better to plant seeds of a few authors than to be scattered about by many. So in thinking about that quote, I was thinking of a friend's wife who posts on social media every time she finishes a book. And then several times a year, she'll post how many books she's read this year. And for her, that's wonderful. It's a contest. It's an achievement, perhaps. But I always wonder how many books she actually retains. Like if I'm reading books all the time, when do I stop to reflect on what I've read? So I love the idea of reading. I highly encourage reading. I was an English major. But if what I'm reading isn't sinking in, or what I'm reading, I can't glean anything from it, I don't incorporate it into my life, is it really of any value? Or is it just an exercise in order to keep the brain muscular, as it were, like a workout for the brain? And that's totally fine. But a friend of mine pointed out the other day, he said, nobody reads anymore. And I said, oh, I don't think that's true. I think people read more now than they ever have. They may not read books, but they read on their phones all the time. They listen to audiobooks a lot. They listen to podcasts. You're listening to one right now. But what is the quality of what they're listening to, and are they thinking about what they're listening to? And I'm going to give people benefit of the doubt and say that they are thinking about what they're listening to. But when I'm bombarded with so much information in a day, every time I open my phone or open an app, I'm distracted by whatever the advertisement is, or whatever the algorithm wants me to see. And I get it. I understand the idea. I understand that free apps need to be subsidized, and therefore advertising has to happen. And so these ads are being customized to what the algorithm thinks it knows about me. But what ends up happening is, let's say for instance, the other day I was looking for a new pair of glasses. So now every app that I open on my phone has ads for different places that sell glasses online. And that's great. But what if I already bought glasses and I don't want to see that anymore? But that's what the algorithm picked up, right? So what happens is the algorithm knows only a little bit about who I am, and it becomes this echo chamber, right? So it just keeps feeding me the same stuff until I give it more input, and then it weights that input and then gives me a mixture of that stuff. And it's the same with the information that I'm being given as well. If I search for information on a search engine, it changes the way that search engine gives me responses in the future, even if I do an unrelated search. Somehow the algorithm thinks it's related. So it's compiling a history of me and what it thinks it knows of me. And I know, and even if there's no nefarious motivation behind it, if it's just trying to be efficient, it really is inaccurate. But what happens is I think there's a possibility for it to become a self-fulfilling prophecy, that what happens is I am exposed only to things that I am familiar with and what the algorithm gives me, therefore. And so I never really expand outside of that sphere of knowledge. When I was in elementary school, there was a librarian in our school, and the librarian would recommend books, and she would recommend different books to different students. But every once in a while, she would give me something new, something, try this. It's outside of what you've read before, but try this. And the algorithm doesn't do that for me now. The algorithm is not a good librarian, right? It doesn't have my best interest in heart, maybe. It wants to sell me stuff. And so I need to make sure that I get out of my own sphere of my own bubble, right, of knowledge, that kind of self-resonating bubble where I speak out and all I hear is the echoes of what I've said before. I think it's important for me to recognize that. And I think it's also important to recognize a few other things about books. With the advent of self-publishing online, there are some great benefits to self-publishing. You can get your work out there. Anyone can get their work out there. And they don't have to go through some process which may involve money and influence in order to get something published. And that's great if that thing that gets published has value. But now also anyone can get published. So just because one is published, that doesn't give it the same credibility as it used to in the past, right? Because in the past, publishing houses used to edit and read and vet books on certain subjects that they, as their reputation as a publishing house, would reflect on what they published. So many publishing houses tried to publish things that they knew were factual, that adhered to a certain literary standard and ability to write. But that's pretty much gone now. I know that there may be publishing houses that still do that. But there's so much other information on the internet that's published that's not subject to those kinds of things. Here's an example. So when 2020 happened and everybody was worried, and I was worried too, what am I going to do for work? What's going to happen next? I took a freelance job from a freelance author. He's subletted this job to me, basically. He farmed out this job to me. And I was supposed to write an article. But this was writing SEO, right? So SEO is search engine optimization. So basically what I was supposed to do is write this article about a subject, which I really didn't know much about. But I was supposed to use certain words and phrases a certain number of times in order to get the algorithm to get the algorithm to pay attention, right? But I had to kind of write these things as if I were a human writing these things, not a machine just saying the phrase GFCI over and over again, right? That's what it was about. It was about electrical outlets. So basically, I'm writing as if I'm authoritative on this subject, and I'm not. And therefore, I'm basically writing authoritatively as if I were an expert on this subject, and I'm not. So I finished the exercise and assignment, and I turned it in, and I got reviewed, and he had some critique. And it took me a long time to do this. And it was paying per word. So this is important because
that's good, huh?
I wasn't getting paid by the hour, by the minute. I was getting paid per word. So there's a tendency for a writer to want to do this quickly, right? And just kind of churn this out like a machine. And that does not allow enough time to do careful research. So that was alarming to me. So basically I said, look, I don't want you to publish this, and I don't want this job. Thank you very much for the opportunity, but I just don't want to do this kind of work. And I didn't really talk to him about it. Why? Except that I said it's time consuming and I don't know that I'm very good at it, and it would take a while to get good at, which is true. But mostly it was the ethical reason that I didn't want to do it, because what I found out is what I thought is, how many other people are doing this, right? So how many people are putting articles out there on the internet that really aren't factual or based on fact? They're just basically fluff that's supposed to attract the ideas and to attract the algorithm. And I can't say that I'm not entirely innocent of that. I have a YouTube channel, so I want people to listen and watch my stuff. But I don't know how to manipulate the algorithms. I don't know how to get that, I don't know how to do that. So my channel's kind of grown organically because I post all kinds of weird stuff. Like, I know I'm not doing internet. I'm not doing YouTube correctly the way that one would want to do YouTube in order to grow as fast as possible. I know that. Yeah. But I'm starting to get okay with that, because if you really want to listen to this, then you're going to listen to it. If you don't, you would have stopped by now. And the algorithm will pick that up, and if more people watch this, then they'll listen to it, and and so on and so forth. But it made me wonder, like, how much information out on the internet is written by professional writers who are not experts in their field, and how much of this is dangerous. Like, it doesn't matter if I'm talking about Star Wars and we're debating like fan fiction or something like that. But what if it's medicine? What if people are using the internet to give themselves medical advice based on an article? And people would say, well, no, that's irresponsible. People shouldn't do that. But we all know people that have done that. I mean, I know people that have done that. They think that they read something on the internet and therefore it's true, and it seems like it's coming from an authoritative website. It's written authoritatively, therefore it must be true. And what I'm beginning to realize is it's not. And then what's really alarming is how many of the books that I've read since the advent of this new form of publishing are also not up to the standards that used to be held by publishers. So at some point, I think the value of older books may become elevated, because at least at that time there was a standard. There were standards by which, you just couldn't get published if in a certain field if it weren't peer reviewed, and if it weren't edited, and if you didn't have several people read the book at least ahead of time. But now anybody can just go out there and publish something. And me too. I mean, I'm doing it with this video, but so I'm aware of that. But anyway, these are some of the things that I've been thinking about lately, and it came up because of that Seneca quote. So what do you think? Do you like Seneca? Are you concerned about this sort of thing? And I haven't even gone into AI. I'd love to talk about that as well. What happens when AI starts to influence what's available on social media platforms and news platforms and that sort of thing, and how humans interact with it? But we could talk all about that in a future episode. If you put some comments down below and have some ideas, and if you want to talk about this, we could do this. We could do a conversation. You've seen my channel. You know that I love conversations, and we should talk about things that are important to us. And so I'm going to let you guys go, and have a great day. And thanks for 13,578 subscribers, I think, as of right now. So why not be 13,579? All right, I'll see you on the next one. Leave me a comment below. Love to hear from you.